Hi, morning.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, hello. Morning.
Good. Sorry, you need to move your phone little bit.
Sorry?
Your face it horizontal. You need to move this one.
Remove?
Your mobile phone need to
Yes.
move because
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
It's
now
okay.
it is correct.
Okay, yeah.
Thank
Hi,
you.
how are you doing?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah, yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So we have another panelist here, Mr. Wali Islam from Australia.
Yes. So are you in Canada now, right?
Yeah, I am in Canada.
Okay. Oh, nice place.
So
how long have you been there? How long?
yeah, so you went to Mexico or no?
No, I just online because it's a long trip and I cannot manage it. So yeah, I'm very sorry about that. Yeah, I did not, but I just joined online, like I send the video to them. Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Dr. Wali Islam.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining this event.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So we are waiting our another panelist, Mr. Toby Mendel. Good morning, sir.
Hi there.
Hi. Good morning, Mr. Toby Mendel. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity and you manage your time to join this event, sir.
No, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. So we will start at 9 and we will see how many other people they join, but we will continue our program, sir.
That's correct. Let's continue.
Yes. So today we have as a panelist Mr. Toby Mendel. He is Executive Director, Center for Law and Democracy, Canada. And Mr. Seri Sam, Prime Minister, Khmer National Government in Exile, Cambodia. He is from Denmark. Dr. Wali Islam, Vice President, World Citizen Association of Australia. He is from now, I think he is in London.
Yes, I'm in London.
And myself.
And by the way, I'm in Cambodia right now.
Oh, you are in Cambodia?
Okay. Yeah. Nice to see you. Yeah, nice to see you.
So, and myself, Muhammad Mominul Haq, I am Director Peace and Justice Alliance, and we are a small the civil society organization based in Toronto, but we work for other countries and working with a global group for security and peace and human rights. So at first, I will present the situation and why we are doing this event. Then we will give the floor to our panelists to talk. It is okay?
It's okay.
Fine. Yeah.
So I will start at 9. Let me see any. We sent several invitations and put in the website. Sometimes people afraid to join some events, sometimes, but we have to carry our program and fight against authoritarian regime around the world. That is our goal. So, good morning from Toronto, Canada. Dear human rights and democracy defenders, I am expressing my heartfelt gratitude to you all. Manage your valuable time to attend and contribute this important event while many parts of the world authoritarian, corrupt, and brutal regime has been keeping power without people mandate and continuously violating Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I want to bring you kind attention like other autocratic and corrupt regime around the world. The present Bangladesh illegitimate and autocratic regime who has been keeping power without people mandate and abusing power. Since 2009, Bangladesh present dictator regime to stop critics and opposition also keep power unlimited time without people mandate has been violating Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Bangladesh Constitution, patronizing mass corruption, bribery, and money laundering. Ruling party members and corrupt brokers, businessmen has been transferred billions of dollars to foreign countries when poor people have not enough food, shelter, and basic needs. Fascist regime also doing extrajudicial killing, enforced disappearances, illegal imprisonment against critics and opposition activists. Huge politicization of the judicial and administration sector made the justice and public service a dream to Bangladesh citizens. At present, Bangladesh, millions of people is affected by climate change, river erosion, early flood, corruption, internal conflict, and oppression. This has created many people and families are vulnerable. But the present government of Bangladesh did not take real measures to implement the articles of SDG 2030 and Climate Action Plan. Whenever program has been taken, all in paper or book, far from reality. Many underprivileged and poor individuals has been taking life risks to get work in abroad for the betterment of their family and become the victim of human trafficking and dying on the sea or in the boat sinks or inside the freezing covered vans in the European borders. In last decades in Bangladesh, gross human rights violation and abuse of power have created a terrible environment of fear, environment of corruption, and culture of impunity. Bangladesh election situation and history. Bangladesh runs a fragile system of government and inherited winners takes all. Historically, since 1971, in voting system of Bangladesh, political parties have no beliefs each other and under the ruling party election. They never accepted by opponents and were not possible a free, fair, and inclusive election. For that reason, all party decided in 28 March 1996, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, along the information of the neutral caretaker government system. The amendment represented a political settlement as all political parties demanded such a system, which acting as an interim government would give all possible aid and assistance to the election commission for holding the general election. It not only allowed a peaceful transfer of power, but also provided citizen voting rights, also equal opportunity to major political parties. The system worked, power changed hands in both in 1996 and 2001. In both contexts, the caretaker government ensured the political foxes did not guard the electoral hen houses. In 2009, present Bangladesh government came to the power. In 2011, the present PM Sheikh Hasina, to continue our power, decided to change the caretaker government of system. They changed the constitution and abolished the non-party caretaker government in 2011. Bangladesh people has observed historic election in 2014 and 2018 without voters. There is huge allegations of voter intimidation, vote rigging, ballot box stuffing, and other irregularities. Stories of election frauds in 2014 and 2018 in Bangladesh are known to the entire world. In the 5th January 2014, 10th parliamentary election, no major opposition party participated in the election. That's why more than half of the members were declared elected unopposed. And 30th December 2018, 11th parliamentary election was worse. Ballot boxes were pre-filled the previous night for chosen candidates under the government official supervision by the ruling party operatives. The election was thus dubbed midnight election. This election was not considered free and fair. Sheikh Hasina and her Awami League party own a third consecutive 5-year term that kept her in office as Prime Minister. The general 12th national parliamentary election will be due to be held in December 2023 or January 2024. Hasina and her ruling party is seeking to win a 5th term overall and a 4th consecutive term as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. But at present in Bangladesh, all the political parties and civil society organizations has declared that they will not join this election and they don't believe any election commission and the ruling party. So they say they will not join this election. They're demanding free, fair and inclusive election under a non-party neutral caretaker government. Human rights violation situation in Bangladesh. Now to control opposition and critics, Bangladesh government misusing controversial laws, digital security acts and using spyware surveillance tools, CC camera all over the country. At present, prison has become overcrowded with opposition and critics. Illegal imprisonment. Since 2009, thousands of rapes and sexual assault cases have been doing by the ruling party member and other activists. There are many unknown cases or victim families fear to report. The incidents of extrajudicial killings, custodial deaths, inhuman torture, and enforced disappearances turn epidemic. It needs to be mentioned that during 2009 to 2022, about 3,900 cases of extrajudicial killing, 64 cases of custodial deaths, 614 persons allegedly subjected to enforced disappearance happens in Bangladesh. Even today, we got a message that one lady, she got custodial death in Bangladesh. So opposition parties, they claiming that there are 3.5 million activists are subjected of the political motivated cases. In November and December 2022, about 8,000 opposition and peaceful protesters were arrested by the law enforcement agencies. Over 10,000 of opposition activists and critics have been living with severely injured by law enforcement agency members. In 2021 and 2022, Bangladesh law enforcement agencies has opened fire to the peaceful protesters and about 30 to 40 people has died on the street. Now many victims has been living with disabilities. Some of them lost their eyes, legs and hands. In Bangladesh, arbitrary arrest, detention, custodial deaths, extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances are the tools of state repression, which has frequently been used by Bangladesh present regime to silence dissenting voices. The government is cracking down political dissidents and opposition activists and peaceful protesters. Bangladesh no more a people's democratic republic, rather we can term it a police state. Massive political recruitment of the law enforcement agencies resulted in an anti-people police command in the country in last 10 decades. The police and the paramilitary forces have lost their neutral character. They are used as government weapons of oppression rather than protecting people's rights and security. During 2009 to 2022, the people of Bangladesh has observed the mockery of the justice, huge politicization of the High Court and Supreme Court made justice a dream to each citizen. The rights groups expressing that government has been nakedly controlling the judicial and administration system against critics and opponents and the peaceful protesters. The free, fair, and credible election is one of the prerequisites of the democratic government and good governance in any country. This has been disappeared in Bangladesh. Now, to avoid conflict, crisis, underprivileged and victimized people of Bangladesh are urging international community and transatlantic community to take urgent measures, urgent intervention and solidarity to restore neutral voting system, democracy, human rights, stop bribery, mass corruption, and money laundering, recover poor people stolen assets from the kleptocrats of the Bangladesh autocratic regime, arrange urgent atmosphere and motions for free, fair, and credible election in 2023 under the neutral government and create a roadmap for inclusive democracy in Bangladesh. Free all the political prisoners from illegal detention, secret imprisonment. Now, to hold accountable the authoritarian regime in Bangladesh, international community needs to initiate urgent measures to implementation of the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act 2016, Early Wessel Genocide and Atrocities Prevention Act of 2018, OECD Convention on Combating Bribery and Foreign Public Officials in International Business Transaction 1997, and Global Fragility Act 2019. Thank you so much being with us. So we have other panelists who will speak on this matter. Thank you. So now I want Dr. Wali Islam to speak about his opinion. Dr. Wali Islam.
Thank you very much for organizing this event, and welcome all the participants to express their views freely and aiming for peace and justice in Bangladesh and around the world. As has been given a list of things by the moderator, for me, it's hard to agree or disagree with all of this because I do not have evidence known to me to agree or disagree. But generally speaking, definitely there is mass resentment and mass opposition to the current regime, what they are doing. Many people within Bangladesh and Bangladeshis around the world do not support. It's mainly because we believe there is no people's participation in the mandate of the government. It is always necessary for a democratic society, everyone give a fair chance to express their opinions and vote for what they think right. and vote against what they don't think right. Unfortunately, this is definitely not happening in Bangladesh. And extrajudicial killing, extrajudicial arrest, imprisonment, often we can see all these things in the newspapers in Bangladesh and outside Bangladesh. The major issue, though, it's not just the present government, the oppositions. If we take the main opposition party who used to run the government of Bangladesh, they didn't also been successful to prove them they're free of corruption, and they didn't really find trust from people. And therefore, mass population, although want to resist what's happening in Bangladesh and what the present government is doing, but they are not very encouraged to move forward. Because if the regime is changed, whether the activities or the actions taken by the current regime will be changed or not, that's a major issue. One of the great things, if we could have achieved that people become courageous and people generally understand the national interests and they behave in a way that they want to put the national interests as their priority, then things would have been changed. But unfortunately, people have lost trust on almost all the political parties because they can't see if there is a change in the regime, there will be change in the systems or the future of Bangladesh. There could be, but that's what I believe general people, both within Bangladesh and internationally, feeling that way. The organizations like Peace and Justice Alliance and other organizations we know have been part of some of them, they need to find out how we can educate, particularly the political leaders of any of the parties, whether government party or opposition party, how they could behave in a way so that they can be trusted by people. Now, this is one issue. The other issue is that definitely the elections, where lots of controversies have been around elections, how those have been happening in the last decades. And certainly there is no fair election, people claims. Many people think that my votes have been given even before I have gone to the election or the voting centers, how that could be happening. So this is a common knowledge, but how to overcome, how to rectify this situation, that is not been easy. People talking about these things within the country, even from outside the country, may be victimized. And they are afraid of talking these things. As the moderator mentioned in the beginning, it's not easy to find people to discuss these matters. Well, I can come back again, but I'm not a politician, so I don't have that view. But I definitely, as a citizen of Bangladesh, and as far as I feel myself as a global citizen, I definitely want things are changed in Bangladesh. Whoever comes in power comes through fair election. And the oppositions are never sure that under the present government, the election will be fair and people will be able to participate in voting process fearlessly. So they want to avoid, they want to say we are not a part of this election. But does it solve the problem? It has not solved the problem last 10, 12, even more than 2 decades. Now, how we can encourage people to participate, particularly the political leaders from all parties to take part in the election. This is an education process, I believe. And how we can influence the government so that at least the election is fair and democratic values are upheld without being one-sided. I think these two things, I believe, are important if we want to avoid further crisis, which is invariably inevitable if we don't take any measures. So again, I repeat, we need to educate the political leaders to so that they have a good mindset, the mindset that really supports the national progress, prosperity, and they are there for people's rights, people's well-being, etc. This is one issue. The other issue is we want to encourage all political parties to take part in the elections. At the same time, we have to influence, I don't know how, but certainly international communities can achieve to a great extent the government that let's make a fair and free election. And whoever comes, they come. But it must be proven the election was fair and free. And that doesn't happen. I leave the question to the panelists. If there is a way to get it done, I would be happy to be a part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wali, for your nice presentation. Now I want Mr. Seri Sam will speak on this matter, and also he will say something about that how authoritarian regime controlling their power for make actually dirty assets.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad. Yes, thank you for invitations. Good morning, good afternoon, good evenings. Yeah, depend on where you are. Sorry. It's my honor that Alliance of Peace and Justice invite me to have a conversations that today regarding the free and fair elections and autocratic regime in Bangladesh. Yeah. Before I get into that, may I start with the briefing the global situation right now. You can see now the democracy and human rights has been attacked for the last decades. And it is a competition between democracy and autocracy. The competition between China and United States due to the Chinese aggressive policy that violate international law, such as in the South China Sea, Taiwan, and Cambodia. The war in Ukraine, due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the climate crisis, and the financial crisis. And now US is prepared the war with China if they violate Taiwan. So it is time for us to stand up for our rights and freedom. Free and fair election is important for all the process of the democratic society. Bangladesh is ahead to the general elections. As I'm aware that the protests after the previous election due to corruption and the human rights abuse in Bangladesh. And I call for the government to hold the free and fair elections so that all the political parties trust each other and be recognized from the international community. And in the geopolitical tensions, I'm warned that for those who favor the autocratic regime, like especially favor China, that is not a good result. As you can see the situation in Myanmar and also happen in Cambodia, as I know Bangladesh have the history, the same history like Cambodia, genocide in Cambodia also. So China does not care about human rights. or climate. They don't care. Yeah. It's like as you can see, like human rights in Xinjiang. Yeah. And they're not responsible for the COVID-19 that break up 2-3 years ago. So to have free and fair elections, the government must have transparency and accountable. And what is free and what is fair in the elections? Free elections is the free society. I mean, open space for all civil society or the political party to be inclusive, participate in the elections. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, all equal. It depends on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And there are 3 steps to be evaluated as the free and fair elections. The first step is before the elections, that the governments must not misuse their facility in the election campaign. The electoral system process must be transparent. And there's no privilege to any political party. They have to give all opportunity to all political party and can access to the public media. There's no intimidations. And the police, army, and the courts must be neutral. This is the first step before the election. And what is the during the elections? During the elections, all the party has equal right to access to the polling station and secrecy of the ballot, and must be accredited by the local and international observer, that all parties have the equal opportunity and there is no intimidation as well. After the elections, there is complaint. It means all the officials must announce the result of election and reports by the media. So this is the free and fair elections, and all the party, all the government should be respect for the democratic process. So I have worked for peace and freedom and democracy in Cambodia. I stand with those who stand for their right and freedom and to defend democracy. And I would like to tell you that you are not alone. I'm standing with you all. So we can together to bring peace to the world. So it is important that the government of Bangladesh have to prepare for free and fair elections so that international community and all your citizens accept the result of election for your country. I want again, thank you for having me in the conversation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Serisen, for your excellent comment and opinion about a free, fair election and how to the inclusive democracy will happen in Bangladesh. So now we want Mr. Toby Mendel. He is the Executive Director, Center for Law and Democracy, and he has a lot of expertise on this matter. So Mr. Toby Mendel.
Thank you very much, and greetings to you from, I'm actually in the country of the previous speaker, Cambodia, where we are working to try to promote human rights and democracy. Not always easy, of course. I've just mentioned my organization, the Center for Law and Democracy. We're based in Halifax, Canada. We work internationally. And we focus on those rights which we consider to be foundational rights for democracy. Those are freedom of expression, access to information, right to association, right to assembly, and the right to participate. So that's the package of rights that we work on. We're a civil society organization, so I'm going to bring a civil society and human rights perspective to this discussion. And I will talk not specifically about Bangladesh. We have two expert speakers from Bangladesh here, but more like the previous speaker about the main elements of democracy. And I'm going to start as a human rights activist by mentioning that democracy, the right to democracy, is protected under international law. A couple of speakers mentioned the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, very important, but I will also bring in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, now ratified by, I think, 173 countries in the world out of about 197. So, you know, almost certainly all of the democracies in the world have ratified it. And Article 25 of that covenant talks about the right to vote. That's one part of democracy, but also the right to take part in the conduct of public affairs, either directly or indirectly through elected representatives. And I think that, I mean, obviously indirectly through elected representatives, elections is an important part of democracy, but I also in my comments will talk about some more direct mechanisms of democracy, which I think are equally important. And as I understood my brief, I will talk a little bit about what happens to a country if it fails to respect the principle of democracy, if it's not a democracy. I mean, there are multiple impacts, and some of the previous speakers have already referred to some of those. I will just highlight some of them. Democracy itself is a basic human right, as I have just mentioned, and I think it's intimately linked to the underlying concept of human dignity that underpins all human rights, and also the concept of equality. Basically, people have a right to have input into their own futures on a basis of equality with everyone else. One person, one vote, you know, the whole, all of the mechanisms of democracy are really built around that concept. We are all equal in deciding our own future. Where democracy is not present, all human rights are at risk, not just the right to democracy, but all of the other human rights, the right to freedom of expression, the right to due process of law, the right to equality. And we can see that in non-democracies around the world. And if you look at indices which measure democracy and the state of democracy and the state of human rights, those countries that are doing poorly on the democracy indicators are also doing poorly on the human rights indicators. So it's not just democracy by itself, but it's all human rights. And the last point I will make, and I think it's a general point, but probably the most important one, is where democracy is not present, the whole development project of the country is undermined. I was just a couple of weeks ago, I was visiting Zimbabwe, and I happened to have lived myself in Zimbabwe from 85 to 88, so quite a long time ago. And at that time, not to say that democracy was perfect in Zimbabwe, certainly it wasn't, but at least it was making an effort to become more democratic. And it was within the region, and I'm excluding South Africa, which of course was under apartheid at that time. It was the leading country in the region in terms of its economy, in terms of development progress. I mean, it was doing really well by comparison to other countries. Around 2000, the commitment to democracy evaporated in Zimbabwe. It underwent a period of dramatic democratic backsliding from which it has still not recovered 23 years later. And as I visited it a couple of weeks ago for a regional conference, and whereas once upon a time, as I mentioned, Zimbabwe was really, the leading country in the region, and you can just see from, I could see from the participation at this event, that's just simply no longer the case. Zambia, for example, which still has problems with its democracy, but at least is making some effort in that direction, unlike Zimbabwe, which is still on the back foot, if you will. I mean, it is doing better economically. The civil society groups from there are freer, more able to participate, more able to drive decision making and to participate in their development process. And I think there are a lot of fairly specific reasons why a failure of democracy is also a failure of development. Firstly, it leads to poor decisions, and not only poor decisions, but poor implementation of those decisions. And Russia has already been mentioned. The catastrophic effect of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, not only on Ukraine, and of course in Canada we see it daily on the television, the destruction that's being wrought on Ukraine, but the catastrophic development impact of this war on Russia. Because Russia and the human rights of Russians have also, fallen down dramatically during this war. A democracy couldn't make a decision like that. It couldn't do something like that. Of course, it's an extreme example, but what we find in non-democracies is a constant flow of not as extreme as that, but similarly poor decisions and poor implementation of them. Obviously, democracy nurtures corruption and nepotism, which is kind of a cancer on development. It leads to a lack of engagement of the people, and the second speaker talked quite eloquently about how Bangladeshis don't feel engaged and don't feel empowered to engage in the democratic process, but that also leads to a disengagement with development, and when people disengage from development, it simply doesn't happen in the same way. It also frequently leads to discrimination as the non-democratic groups that are holding power support their own group and ethnic communities and disadvantage other ones. So those are just a few of the very many ways in which democracy undermines other important values in society. I'll turn now and speak just briefly about some of the key characteristics of democracy, like the previous speaker. Obviously, free and fair elections are a key cornerstone of that. And there's, a huge number of elements that go into that. Some of them sort of, very general and some of them more specific. I would focus just on a few. The ability of different parties to campaign, the issue of public media and access to the public media so you can get your message across, and other media is an important part of that. So, and also that leads us to wider freedom of expression factors. If there's not respect for freedom of expression in the country, then it's almost impossible to have free and fair elections. Also depends on public awareness, how to vote. Obviously, but also what is the meaning of the vote? I think in a lot of countries, people, they think they should support this and that party that, paid them or did something, but they don't really understand that this is determining the whole future of their country. It's a big thing to vote. And I think that, even in Canada, but also in a lot of other countries, people don't really understand that. And then, of course, the actual position of the parties. What do they stand for? What are they saying? What are they going to do if they get elected? All of those are very important. And the role of public broadcasting, again, very important. I just spent a couple of minutes talking about other features of democracy. There needs to be, for example, internal democracy within the parties. The political parties themselves need to operate democratically, not just the environment in which they're operating, but they themselves. Otherwise, you may be free to exercise your vote, but the kind of candidates that get put up for whom you can vote, aren't strong candidates, aren't good candidates, because undemocratic parties themselves are putting up people that aren't going to really take the country forward. Obviously, you need an independent election commission. The idea of independent supervision of the elections was mentioned. And then we can go more broadly. You need the rule of law. You need independent professional judges. And so many other things. You also need democracy within Parliament, within the operation of Parliament. And unfortunately, in a lot of countries, parliaments themselves don't operate democratically, so that especially opposition members, are not equally able to speak and participate in Parliament. And the Interparliamentary Union has a whole human rights committee, the entire job of which is to defend the rights of those opposition parliamentarians whose rights to participate and rights to engage are not being respected. As I said before, democracy is far more, though, than just elections and just the operation of the central parliament. It's really about having participatory mechanisms at all levels of society, how schools are run, how hospitals are run, how development projects get run. And I just give a personal example here. Where my house is, behind it, there used to be a mother house, and so my own house backed off onto basically a small forest. Now with the decline of the sisters and most of the sisters have died or moved on to other places, so they sold the mother house, and the developer has bought the property. In my situation, the developer is required to make available to everyone living in the area all of the studies that they have conducted about the development, what the environmental impact will be, what the impact on traffic will be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then they're required to have regular consultation meetings, and I would get a leaflet in my mailbox, a physical piece of paper in my mailbox saying this meeting is taking place to discuss this development. And when I go to that meeting, if I want to be an active participant, I know as much basically as the developer does. Now, that is a democratic, open way to conduct the development. Of course, we're very unhappy that the development is, we used to have a forest, and after the development takes place, we're going to be looking at houses. And I can say with some pleasure that so far the development has been blocked because the developer is not meeting the standards and the policies that are required, because other citizens, not myself, I didn't really engage, but other citizens have studied the proposal and found the problems with it and have gone to the authorities and blocked it like that. I'm going to just end up talking a little bit about the challenging world we live in terms of democracies. And I mean, it's always been the case that there's been a spectrum of democracies, and I'm not the first speaker here to mention China and Russia as clear non-democracies. We have some strong democracies on the other hand. I won't give examples of those. And then, a lot, and I would like to say, though, that even strong democracies always need to do more to improve their democratic situation. It's not something you get and then you sort of sit there with it. It's a project that you have to continuously work on. And I think in Canada, more or less we are doing that. When problems come up, we highlight them, we discuss them, and we try to solve them. But there are a lot of countries in the middle space which are clearly not democracies or strong democracies. And I think that, I mean, within that group, some of these countries are trying to democratize, facing challenges. It's a process, it takes a while. Others are not, and they're just backsliding or not bothering with that. And I won't give an opinion as to which countries are in that group, but I guess some of the ones that we're speaking about here. And unfortunately, in the modern era, the situation is very challenging for democracy. Two of the largest democracies, China and Russia, are themselves experiencing backsliding. So China is less democratic today than it was 10 years ago. Russia is much less democratic today than it was 10 years ago. And not that it was a strong democracy 10 years ago, but it's worse today than that. But much more importantly, especially China, and this was already hinted at, is actively going around the world promoting anti-democratic values, spending money on that, buying governments that are not democratic and then maintaining them in their undemocratic situation. It's an incredibly powerful and important country. And when it is actively opposing democracy like that, that creates enormous headwinds for democracies around the world. So I think that's a huge challenge. And we've seen a lot of formerly reasonably strong democracies wobbling much more than we ever expected, like India, for example, Brazil, and frankly, even the United States. Okay, the United States is still a strong democracy, but it went through a period where, its status as a democracy was substantially less established than it had been. And I think it's important just to mention the role of social media and the enormous growth of populism, which has been fueled in part by social media, and the impact unfortunate impact that is having on democracies. And I'll just finish by saying I remain an optimist. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing if I weren't an optimist. You can't work on human rights if you don't believe that we're going somewhere. And despite all of these challenges, I do continue to see around the world some countries that are making progress in this area. I think that that is certainly something that we need to keep working on, but also something that we can achieve. So I will remain doing the work I do because I believe that, and I hope that others believe that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toby Mendel, for your contribution. So now I see Miss Kathy, if you want to contribute in this panel. So, any other person in this, participants want to speak on this matter, on this subject? So, my understanding that this present situation in the world, that world has divided by like a democracy and autocracy. So mainly, in particularly for Bangladesh, I can see that geopolitics and like a fuel by the Russia and China, the present Bangladesh regime getting a lot of funds to keep the power, keep the ideology, whatever the China put, Mr. Xi Jinping and the Russia's Putin has been doing, they keeping power without people mandate. So they want that their same ideology will implement other part of the world. So that is going on in Bangladesh and some other countries. International community have to do more action plan. They need to take necessary measures, not in the statement. You have to bring real action plan in front of the people. They want to see that their voice has been heard. They want to see that perpetrators and kleptocrats of the autocratic regime around the world, they got accountable, they got punishment actually. So that is the main thing. If there will be no justice, there will be no peace. So any other panelists want to contribute anything, add?
Yes, I would like to add something regarding to democracy backsliding. What I think right now is the most democratic force, they need support from international community, like Director Mohammed, he said. It's not only the word, but actions. Or it's not only in Bangladesh, but around the world, including Cambodia, like struggle for our 10th year. And we are like everything. And we just call support from international community, and I have worked with the United Nations right now, and I'm just doing a petition, to the Secretary Generals of the United Nations to take the concrete actions to restore human rights, to restore democracy, and to stop human rights abuse in Cambodia. As I heard what's happening in Bangladesh, it's similar to what's happening in Cambodia. While dictatorship takes control the country, especially like I am expert, I'm in the field of Cambodia. I have known a lot. Right now, there's no oppositions in Cambodia, and civil society, NGO, and all the opposition has been, restricted and has been arrested to prisons. So there's no opposition and no democratics in Cambodia, and similar to in Bangladesh. That's right. Words. I support the call of the director of Alliance of Peace and Justice, that call for international community to look at, for those who support democracy, that we need your support and we need your help. Thank you.
Can I also make a comment about that? I mean, I think I first of all, I completely support that idea. I spent my whole life working on that, so I certainly support it. But I think we have to recognize how naive, frankly, the so-called, well, not so-called, the democracies of the world have been. Europe did not even protect itself against Russia. It was completely dependent on Russian energy supplies, oil and gas. And when it, put sanctions on Russia at the start of this, well, it's not actually the start of this war, because the war had been going on since 2014, but the new and more aggressive phase of this war, suddenly Europe found itself incredibly vulnerable, to the energy supplies from Russia. It never even thought that it needed to take measures to protect its own self against the threats from non-democracies. And now I think, the Russian war, the Russian invasion of Ukraine have changed attitudes and changed perspectives on that. For example, the president of Germany was recently in Canada, not only looking at energy, but also trying to secure access to critical minerals, which China have very strategically and, in a well-planned and well-orchestrated way, has kind of, sought to control quite a lot of that. And Europe is now, and Canada as well, is now realizing that, we need to protect our own democracies even against those things. So I think that, I'm hopeful that we might see more a better understanding of the threats to democracy that are coming from some anti-democratic forces in the world, but also hopefully the recognition that the democracies do need to do far more to defend not only their own democracies, but also democracies around the world. And hopefully we'll see more strategic interventions in that area, and just simply more interventions in that area. I'm hopeful about that.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Toby that to support not only democratics in their own country, but around the world, in order to democracy to prevail. In this fight, I'm agree with that. Yeah, and so so I think right now the Europeans just focus on Russia and Ukraine, but the main thing, as I agree with you, like China is, they're not responsibility what the pandemic, they attack the people around the world, but who respond for this? You see, this is the attack from the autocracy. This is the people around the world that is affected by the pandemic, but they not respond for this. So this is that one thing that we have to have China accountable for this mistake. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I want to actually tell about the development, like a Toby tell that how autocratic regime, they show the people that you see, even you don't have a democracy, you see a lot of development going on. But when I don't have a democracy, I don't have a human rights, I cannot speak. The main thing is that this autocratic government, they create a nexus of mafias or group. So they work each other, the development benefit only getting who are associates with the ruling party. So they created a group. So, and they show that you see people, we are doing development. Don't think about the democracy, human rights. But they are keeping power in that way, and they are earning illicit asset, dirty money from there. And they are doing billions of dollar money laundering in the Western countries. We have a proof. They money laundered billions of dollars in Canada, US, in UAE, Dubai. But nobody take care of it. Nobody, they don't go to the justice. And so mainly the ground level people, the like a disadvantaged poor people, they are thinking, okay, so what we will do if we say something or oppose the autocracy? The global leaders do not do nothing. They don't do their job. They don't do real action against the autocratic rulers. So they keep quiet. They now this is going on in many parts of the world, even Cambodia, like Bangladesh and other part of the world. So they are showing, okay, we are doing development. So global citizens, civil society organization, and the transatlantic community need to take real measures that we will not give any support or any tolerance to the dirty money owners or illicit owners. That is the main thing. So you have to bring like a pilot project. Don't go for big thing. Pilot project. You can take for such as Bangladesh. The election is coming. So international community can say, okay, we want to implement our idea. This is the pilot project, and we will implement that project. And if it will succeed, we'll continue that project around the world to hold accountable the authoritarianism. That is our call.
Just a comment on the money laundering element. In addition to being the director of the Center for Law and Democracy, I also sit on the board of Transparency International Canada, which of course is a leading Canadian anti-corruption organization. And we recently, TI Canada, not my own organization, recently published a report which we called Snow Washing. So Canada, country of snow, and it shows how indeed, as you said, a lot of money laundering has been taking place in Canada. For example, a lot of the housing, foreign housing project, and they buy a house and they invest the money in that and whatever, and some things that were very, very blatant and obvious. For example, people will walk into a gambling casino with a bag, huge bag full of cash, okay, dirty money, gamble for a while, lose 3% or whatever the average take of the house is. They don't care, it's not the big money to pay to clean the money, and then they walk out with clean money because it's been laundered through a gambling casino. And I mean, everybody can tell who walks into a casino with a great big bag of cash like that. It's obvious what's going on, but yet measures were not taken. So I fully agree with you that we need to be far more exigent about that issue.
Yeah, thank you. May I just add comment on the previous moderator is talking about what about democracy and what about human rights and call for action from international community. As I can see, they just thinking about what difference between like money and human rights. What is the core value? So we have to consider about this. Because the people, they just say, okay, I need business, I need money, but they forget about human rights. They forget about the core value. That's why, like the last decades, democracy is backsliding. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I have to consider again. As you can see, like, if we think about the money laundering, because they give you, okay, money, and they just produce money, but they don't think about human rights. Yeah. So this is the human right said in the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. but money is not set in Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So we have to consider the human right first, the humanity first, and then the money have to respect also human rights. Business also respect for human rights. This is the key that I want to all the stakeholder, because right now the world is in crisis because of the, you know, like you can see like China, they produce a lot of CO2, like you know, yeah, they are, you know, they are deforestation to other countries, especially in Cambodia. Yeah, and then, you know, they violate human rights. They don't care about international law. They don't care about human rights. Though this is, we have to care about this for, and then otherwise our planet, that first climate crisis right now, we be destroy all, everyone around the world will be affected by this, yeah, concept that does not care about human rights. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much for every person contribution, and you manage your valuable time to attend this event. And any comments, any more comments from any participants? Otherwise, we will end this event. And any comments from any person?
Just a little comment from me. I believe that the participants of today and their connections should form a network and continue exchanges views and ideas and try to make an effort. As you have said, that we can take a pilot project, even it could be Bangladesh, could be Cambodia, and see how the ill processes can be reversed to beneficial, people supportive processes. It's not an easy thing. Democracy, pro-democracy movement is going on very long. But the question of human rights, abuse of human rights is almost everywhere. Some places, you may call it more, some places less, but even I think more than 95% population of the world do not understand what are the rights they have as humans. So if they don't understand their rights as human, then how they can think they would get it? If they don't get it, what they can do about it? So that's why two things I was saying, that education, including political leaders, we can't go against everyone and win. We have to bring people, particularly the political leaders, the economic leaders, in our favor for the benefit of themselves and for the benefit of humanity. And to get that, we must use the good people's vision of the world, and the politically alert, conscious, and politically sound people should take part in this movement, in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Islam, for your contribution. So we look forward. We will not stop our campaign and advocacy for global democracy, peace, and human rights. Even the dictators or autocratic ruler, they don't like us, but we will not stop our campaign. We will continue as well to achieve our goal. We want to empower people, humanity. That is our goal. Thank you so much, and look forward to work with you guys again and support our programs and campaign. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you very
Have a
much.
nice day. Take care.
Good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.